His bare hand plunged into the snow and closed around a woman's frozen wrist. No pulse at first. Then, faint as a whisper, a single beat. Ethan Steele had seen men die in 3 different deserts, but nothing. Nothing prepared him for what he found buried 20 feet from his daughter's bedroom window that morning. An FBI agent. Bound. Left for dead. And the men who put her there. They were still watching. Still waiting. Stay until the end. Because what this single father did next will leave you speechless. Drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments, and if you love a story about courage, hit that subscribe button right now. The cabin smelled like coffee and pine smoke, and for the first time in 9 months, Ethan Steele wasn't reaching for his phone before his boots hit the floor. It was 6:14 on a Tuesday morning in late January, and the temperature outside the frosted kitchen window was holding steady at 17 below. The thermometer nailed to the porch post had stopped being funny years ago. Out here in the thick pine belt 40 miles north of Traverse City, Michigan, the cold wasn't a condition. It was a presence. It sat on your shoulders. It followed you into the bathroom. It tested you. Ethan liked being tested. He stood at the stove in a gray thermal and jeans, a 6'1" frame, built from 12 years of naval special warfare and the stubborn Dutch genetics his mother had passed down like an heirloom. 41 years old. Dark blonde hair gone a little silver at the temples. A jaw that had been broken once in Kandahar and set poorly on purpose because the medic was a friend and Ethan had told him to hurry. He cracked 2 eggs into the cast iron and listened to the sound of his daughter still sleeping. Maya was 7. 7 and already too smart for her father's good. She had her mother's black hair and her mother's laugh, and thank God, none of her mother's restlessness. Sarah had been gone 2 years now. Cancer. Fast and merciless, the kind of fight a SEAL couldn't win for somebody else, no matter how many doors he'd kicked in overseas. Ethan had retired the week after the funeral. Not because he couldn't do the job. Because Maya needed a father more than the Navy needed another operator. The cabin had been his grandfather's. 3 rooms, a wood stove, a well that froze 2 winters out of 5. No internet. No cell signal unless you walked to the ridge behind the shed. That was the whole point. Atlas. Breakfast. The big German shepherd didn't come. Ethan glanced at the door. The dog's shadow was there black against the narrow glass panel, but Atlas wasn't moving. He was standing in that particular way, weight forward ears, prick tail low and stiff. Ethan had seen that stance in Helmand, seen it in a warehouse outside Mosul. Atlas was a retired Marine Corps K-9 8 years old, and he didn't do it for fun. "Hey, buddy!" The dog didn't turn around. Ethan killed the burner. He crossed to the door in 3 strides, wiped the condensation off the glass with the back of his hand, and looked out. The world was white. Fresh snow on top of old snow on top of frozen ground, maybe 30 inches deep in the open meadow that ran down from the cabin to the tree line. The storm had quit around 3 in the morning. Sun wasn't up yet. The sky was that dark bruised blue that meant another front was coming in behind the first one. Atlas growled, low, chest deep, the kind of growl that wasn't a warning to anybody but his handler. "What do you see, bud?" Ethan pulled his Carhartt off the peg, shoved his feet into the unlaced Danner boots by the door, and grabbed the old Remington 870 off the rack above the coat hooks. Not because he expected trouble, because 12 years in the teams had carved a simple rule into his spine: if the dog is worried, you are worried. He cracked the door open. The cold hit him like a slap. Atlas shot out between his legs before he could stop him, a black and tan streak across the porch and down into the drift, floundering for a half second before his paws found the crust. He ran maybe 40 feet out into the meadow, stopped, and began to bark. Not the mailman bark. Not the squirrel bark. The real one. Atlas. Halt. The dog didn't halt. He was digging now, front paws hammering the snow, throwing powder in a rooster tail behind him. Ethan stepped off the porch. Dad. He turned. Maya was standing in the kitchen doorway in blue pajamas printed with little astronauts, her hair a black tangle, her bare feet pressed on top of each other on the floorboards. "Back to bed, honey. Atlas is just being weird." "Is it a deer?" "Might be. Go warm up. Okay, don't come outside." "Okay." She vanished. 7 years old, and she still did what he asked her the first time. He thanked God for that about twice a day. He pulled the door shut and started down through the snow, the Remington held loose and low, the cold crawling up under his cuffs. Atlas was still digging, still barking. 40 yards out now, where the meadow started to slope down toward the creek. Ethan was 10 feet away when he saw the hand. Just the fingers at first. Pale, blue at the nail beds, sticking up out of the snow the way a branch might stick up, except branches didn't have wedding band tan lines on the fourth finger. Jesus! He dropped the shotgun. He went to his knees beside the dog and started digging with his bare hands because gloves were too slow, because a hand that color meant minutes, maybe seconds, and his brain had already slammed through the checklist, airway. Breathing circulation, hypothermia protocol, call 911. There is no 911 out here, before his fingers even closed on the wrist. He felt for a pulse. Nothing. He moved his fingertips a quarter inch, and there. Faint. Once. Twice. A heartbeat like somebody tapping on the other side of a wall. Stay with me. Stay with me. Stay with me. He dug faster. Atlas was beside him, paws working in tandem, and between them the snow came away in great wet chunks. An arm, a shoulder, a jaw. Dark hair frozen stiff against a white face. A woman, maybe 35, mouth half open, lips the color of a dish rag. And then Ethan saw the zip ties. Her wrists were bound in front of her, the black plastic cinched so tight it had cut through the cuffs of a navy blue canvas jacket and into the skin underneath. Her ankles, he cleared more snow, her ankles too. Not one zip tie. 3. Stacked. Done by somebody who wanted her to stay put. "Oh, you sons of—" He stopped himself. Maya was back in the cabin. She couldn't hear him out here, but he'd stopped cursing the day Sarah got sick and never quite restarted. He stripped off his Carhartt, laid it open on the snow, rolled the woman onto it in one careful motion, supporting her neck. Because if she had a spinal injury, he was about to make it worse, and there was no choice. None at all. She was freezing to death in front of him, and the only question was whether he killed her, moving her, or let the cold do it. He dragged her toward the cabin. Atlas ran ahead. Halfway back he heard her. A sound. Barely a sound. A kind of whistle in her throat, like air trying to find a door. "Hey, hey. Can you hear me, ma'am? Can you hear me? Stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. Didn't open. "Good. Good, that's good. You're gonna be okay. I got you." He hit the porch steps at a stagger, got the door open with his boot, and carried her across the living room, past a wide-eyed Maya, and laid her down on the wool rug in front of the wood stove. "Dad." "Maya, listen to me." He was already cutting the zip ties with his Leatherman fast, careful not nicking the skin. "I need you to go in my bedroom. There's a red duffel under the bed. Bring it. Go, now please." "Is she—" "She's alive. She's very cold. Go." She went. She went running. God bless that kid. Ethan got the zip ties off and started working. He peeled back the collar of the woman's jacket. Her undershirt was soaked through and frozen to her chest. Her boots were good Danner Acadia's duty issue, but one sock was missing and the exposed foot was white as bone. He'd seen frostbite like this exactly twice, once in the Hindu Kush and once in a Wyoming avalanche drill, and both times somebody had lost toes. He didn't have time to lose toes. Maya was back with the duffel. "Open it. Give me the wool blankets, both of them, and the thermos, and the little kit with the red cross on it." She was 7 and her hands shook, but she did it like a surgeon's nurse. She handed him blankets. She unscrewed the thermos of hot water he kept prepped every night, old habit, and poured some into a metal bowl without being asked. "Dad, is she? She's an officer of some kind. Look." He nodded at the badge he'd just found clipped inside the jacket. "FBI, Federal Police. Who did this? I don't know yet. Dad." He stripped off the woman's wet jacket, got her out of the frozen shirt, wrapped her in the wool layer on layer, leaving her face clear. He filled 2 hot water bottles from the thermos and placed them under her armpits and against the femoral arteries in her groin core, rewarming not extremities, because if you warmed the extremities first, the cold blood in her arms and legs would dump back into her heart and stop it. That was the thing about hypothermia. The rescue could kill you just as fast as the freeze. He checked her pulse at the carotid. Weak, but steadier. "Come on, come on, come on, come on." And then her eyes opened. Just a crack. The whites were bloodshot, the irises a startling pale gray, and for 3 long seconds she didn't see him. She saw something else, something behind him and through him, and 1,000 miles past him. Then the focus came back. And the first thing she did, Ethan would remember this for the rest of his life. The first thing she did was try to reach for the sidearm that wasn't on her hip anymore. "Easy." He kept his hands visible. "Easy. I'm not them. My name's Ethan Steele. You're inside a cabin. You're safe." Her lips moved. No sound. He leaned closer. She tried again. A rasp like sandpaper on a screen door. "Tim? Whose Tim? Is Tim with you?" "They took..." "Who took him? Who took Tim?" Her eyes rolled up. She was going out again. Hey, stay with me. What's your name?" "Claire." A swallow. A shudder through the whole body. "Morgan. Special Agent. Federal. Bureau." "Yeah, I saw the badge, Claire. You're okay. You're in Leelanau County, Michigan. You've been exposed for, I don't know how long. Hours at least. I need you to stay awake. Can you do that for me?" Cold. I know you are. I got you." Maya was kneeling on the other side of her silent, those huge, dark eyes, taking in every detail the way she took in everything. Claire's gaze found her. For the first time, something human came back into the woman's face. "Little girl." "That's my daughter," Ethan said. "Maya. Honey, say hi." "Hi." Maya's voice was small. "You're really cold." Claire made a noise that was almost a laugh or a sob, hard to say. "I need a phone." "No signal out here, Claire. I've got a sat radio in the other room. I'm going to raise somebody in the next 10 minutes. I promise you." "No." Her hand came up, clumsy fingers barely working, and gripped his wrist. Cold as a fish. But she gripped it. "Not local? Not... Sheriff?" "Why not the sheriff?" Her eyes closed. "Claire, why not the sheriff?" "He's one of them." A silence fell over the little cabin that Ethan would feel in his bones for weeks afterward. The wood stove popped. Atlas at the door let out a long, low breath. Maya looked up at her father. "Dad." "Yeah, sweetheart." "What does that mean?" He didn't answer her. He couldn't answer her. He brushed his thumb along Claire Morgan's wrist, once a gesture his wife used to do to him when he was tired, and stood up. "Maya, I need you to do 2 more things for me. Big girl things. Okay. I need you to sit right here next to Claire and talk to her. Keep her awake. Tell her about school. Tell her about Atlas. Tell her anything. If her eyes close for more than a few seconds, you yell for me. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Second thing, the doors. I want the deadbolt on the front door thrown, and I want the bar on the back door dropped. You remember how I showed you?" "Yes, Dad." "Good girl. Go." She went. He walked to his bedroom, shut the door behind him, pulled the Pelican case out from under his side of the bed and popped it open. Inside was a satellite phone, a Garmin InReach, and an older Iridium handset redundancy because he didn't trust any single piece of gear with his kid's life. He thumbed the Iridium on and walked to the window where the reception was best. 3 rings. "Steele." The voice on the other end was rough, close American and very much awake at 6:30 in the morning. "This better be a fishing report." "Rourke, I got a situation." A pause. Master Chief Daniel Rourke had been Ethan's team leader for 7 years and his friend for 15. There was nobody on the planet Ethan trusted more than the man on the other end of that line, and Rourke knew the shape of Ethan's voice the way a mother knows the shape of her child's cry. "Talk to me." "I'm at the cabin. Maya's with me. My dog flushed a body out of the snow about 40 yards off my front porch. Female mid-30s, hypothermic bound wrists and ankles. She came to for about 90 seconds. She ID'd herself as FBI Special Agent Claire Morgan. Says her partner Tim, something was taken. Says the local sheriff is compromised." A longer pause this time. "You're sure about the FBI ID?" "Credentials inside her jacket. Looks legit. Photo matches. Serial numbers intact. I didn't run them obviously, but I've seen enough to know the holder and the seal." "Steele." "Yeah. This is bad." "I know it's bad. That's why I called you." Rourke was quiet for a 3 count. Ethan could hear him moving, hear a chair creak, hear the rattle of a keyboard. "I'm putting a call in to a guy at the Detroit field office, quietly. While he's verifying, you do not contact local law enforcement. Not the sheriff, not state troopers, nobody till I call you back. Understood?" "Understood." "How's your position?" "Solid. Cabin's defensible. I've got the Remington, the SIG, and the AR in the safe. 1 road in, 1 road out. Trees to the west and north, creek bed to the south. I can see anybody coming from 3 miles off if the weather cooperates, which it won't, because there's a second front coming in around noon." "And Maya?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Maya's with me. Copy. Listen. You hold that cabin, Steele. You hold it. I'm going to get you people you can trust, but I need 2, maybe 3 hours. You got enough food, water, heat?" "Yes." "How's the agent?" "Alive. Barely. Core temp has to be low 90s. If we get her through the next hour without her heart stopping, I think she makes it. Keep her talking when you can. Get what she knows. If she goes down for good, we lose her intel." "I know." "Steele." "Yeah, I'm proud of you, brother." "Save it. Just get me the cavalry." He killed the connection, stood for a moment in the gray half-light of the bedroom, and let himself feel for exactly 2 seconds the sick cold weight of what he had just walked into. A federal agent bound left to die on his land. A partner in the hands of the people who had done it. A corrupt sheriff. And his 7-year-old daughter sitting out there on the rug, holding a stranger's hand. 2 seconds. He took a breath. Then he shut it down the way they'd taught him in BUD/S. The way he'd had to shut it down the day Sarah died, and he went back to work. When he opened the bedroom door, Maya was talking softly, a steady stream. "And Atlas isn't supposed to get on the couch, but he does anyway, especially when Dad's in the shower. And one time, he ate a whole sandwich off the counter, and didn't even feel bad, and my teacher, Mrs. Pellman, says." Claire's eyes were open, tracking. A small, real smile had found one corner of her mouth. Ethan crossed to them and crouched down. "Claire, I need you to listen to me. I've reached a friend I trust. Federal, former military. He's verifying your credentials right now and routing help. He told me not to call local. You with me?" She nodded once. Tiny movement. "Good. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I need whatever you can give me, even a word. Every minute counts for Tim. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Where were you taken?" Parking lot, motel, off 31, north of Honor. How many? 3, maybe 4. Vehicles. Black Suburban, 1 pickup, Ford. Did they say anything? Names, places, numbers. Yeah. Her eyes squeezed shut. She was fighting for it. Ethan recognized the fight, the way your brain went underwater when your body was this cold, and coming up to grab a single word felt like lifting a car. The sheriff, she whispered, is on their payroll. Leelanau. Name is Boyd. Boyd. They said his name. They laughed. Okay. Okay, Claire, you're doing great. One more. The trafficking ring. How high does it go? Her eyes opened then, fully. For the first time since he'd pulled her out of the snow, Agent Claire Morgan looked at Ethan Steele, and what he saw in those pale gray eyes was not fear. It was not cold. It was not shock. It was fury, pure and clean like good steel. Higher, she whispered, than you want to know. Somewhere outside, faint across the meadow in the direction of the road, Atlas began to bark again. Not the warning bark. The alarm bark. Ethan's head came up. Maya was already looking at the door. Dad. Upstairs. He was moving before the word was out. Maya loft, right now. Take Atlas. You know what to do. Dad. Go. She grabbed the dog's collar, and she went because she was her father's daughter, and because a Steele the Navy had a saying about this, a Steele did what needed doing first, and cried about it after. Ethan crossed to the window. Through the frosted glass, through the first feathery flakes of the second storm beginning to fall, he could see them. 2 figures, coming down the access road, half a mile out. Walking, not driving because the road wasn't plowed past the county line and they didn't want the sound of an engine announcing them. Long coats, dark, rifles slung. They weren't in uniform, but from this distance, through the glass, Ethan Steele, former chief, Petty Officer SEAL Team 7-2, Silver Stars and 1 Purple Heart, he'd never told his daughter about, could see the silhouette of what they were. They were hunters, and they had come for the woman on his living room floor. He walked calmly back across the room. He bent down. He took Claire Morgan's face in his hands very gently and he said, Claire, listen to me. 2 men are coming across my property right now. I am going to handle it. I need you to stay awake. Can you do that? Take. She tried to sit up. Couldn't. Take the USB out of my boot. What? Left boot. Heel compartment. If they get me. Get it? To Rourke. He stopped. You know Rourke. Everybody in this job knows Rourke. Ethan Steele let out one short surprised laugh, the first sound of anything like hope since he'd found her hand in the snow, and he reached for her boot. The clock on the mantel said 6:47 a.m. And the men in the long coats were 400 yards away. The heel of the left boot came off in his hand with a small click, a compartment Ethan had missed entirely on his first pass because the boot was standard Danner issue and the modification was clean field-level work. A black thumb drive, rubber-sheathed, slid into his palm like a river stone. Got it. Claire's eyes were closed again. She wasn't out. Her lips were moving, counting the way they taught you in survival school to stay conscious through hypothermia, but she had spent everything she had on those last sentences, and her body was done talking. Ethan zipped the drive into the inside pocket of his shirt, buttoned it, and put his mouth close to her ear. Claire, 2 men coming. I need you to stay down. Don't move. Don't make a sound. If you hear shots, you stay down. You understand me? A tiny nod. That was all he got. That was enough. He stood up. The Remington was still lying in the snow out in the meadow. Stupid, Ethan thought. Rookie stupid. You dropped your long gun in a panic and walked away from it. 2 years out of the service, and the edges on him were already soft. He filed it away the way a carpenter files away a bad cut and moved on. There was a Sig P 226 under the kitchen counter in a magnetic holster. There was a Springfield XD in the bedroom nightstand. There was an AR-15 in the safe under the bed. But the safe took 17 seconds to open if you hurried, and he didn't have 17 seconds. He took the Sig. He moved. Maya. Her voice came back from the loft, small and steady. I'm up here, Dad. Atlas with you. Yes. You got the Coleman the lantern. Yes. You remember what I told you about the red switch? Don't touch it unless you say so, or unless you don't come back. He closed his eyes for exactly one breath. That's right, honey. You don't touch it unless I say so, or unless I don't come back. Dad. Yeah, I'm scared. I know you are, baby. Me too. We're gonna be okay. Promise. Steels keep their promises, he said, because it was what his own father had said to him on the worst night of his childhood, and because saying it now made him her father, the way his father had been his across a gap of 40 years and 2 graves. You stay quiet. You stay small. Whatever you hear down here, you stay in that loft until I say otherwise. Yes, Dad. He crossed back to the front window. The 2 men were closer now. Maybe 200 yards and closing steady. They had split about 15 feet apart. Not a civilian's walking distance. That and the one on the left was carrying what looked like an AR pattern rifle, muzzle down on a single-point sling, while the one on the right had a short bolt gun slung high on his back and a pistol riding his hip. They moved in the snow like men who had done it before. Boss, not cops, not sheriff's deputies. No uniform, no vehicle, no reflective anything. Private. Ethan pulled his own phone, the useless one no bars hadn't been useful in 6 days, and thumbed it over to the camera. He pressed his face to the window and zoomed. The one on the left had a patch on his coat sleeve. A small one. Dark green with a bird on it. Ethan had seen that patch before. It took him a second. Then it came. Vulture Strategic Solutions. A private military contractor out of Virginia, staffed heavy with ex-Rangers and ex-Marine raiders who had washed out for the wrong reasons. Rourke had done a brief on them 18 months before Ethan retired. They had a reputation for clean work and dirty clients, and whatever the federal government was supposed to be doing about them, the federal government had not been doing. 2 vulture men, walking down his driveway in Michigan, in January. Coming for a federal agent. Ethan picked up the iridium and hit the redial. Rourke answered on the first ring. Talk. 2 shooters at 400 yards and closing. Green bird patch. Long coats, 1 AR, 1 bolt gun, 1 pistol. Oh, you have got to be kidding. I am not kidding. Vulture. Confirmed. There was the particular silence on the line that Ethan remembered from before certain operations. The silence of a man recalculating the whole board. Bet. Steele, listen. I had my guy at the Detroit field office pull Morgan's file. She's clean. She's better than clean. She's a golden child. 3 years ago, she brought down a trafficking ring out of Cleveland that ran through Mexican nationals and a couple of United States senators' offices. She has made enemies you do not want. Her partner, Tim Davis, disappeared 18 hours ago off a surveillance post outside Traverse City. There is an active bulletin, but it is internal only, because the local sheriff up there is sitting on a corrupted 911 dispatch. Boyd? How did you... She told me. Copy. Steele. I cannot get a federal team to you in under 90 minutes. I've got a buddy at the Michigan State Police Post in Gaylord who is dirty clean, meaning he is clean, but the department around him is a question mark. He can have 2 troopers at your driveway in 40 minutes if I call him now. But if Vulture is already on top of you, those 2 men are the first wave. There will be more. Understood. Can you hold? I'm gonna have to. Steele. Call the trooper. I'll see you on the other side. He killed the line. He had, by his estimate, 3 minutes before the 2 men in the long coats reached his porch. Claire was muttering on the rug now, her lips moving in a kind of half-conscious current. He caught a name. Tim. 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 I'm sorry. He knelt beside her one more time and pressed 2 fingers against her carotid. Her pulse was stronger. Her color was coming back in small pink ghosts along the jaw and the cheekbones. The shivering had started in earnest, which was good. Shivering meant her body had decided to live. You hear me, Claire? 2 men out front. I'm gonna handle it. I want you behind the wood stove. Can you do that for me? Her eyes opened a sliver. Gun. You want a gun? Yes. He almost laughed. He almost kissed her forehead. Instead, he pulled the Springfield XD from the nightstand drawer, press-checked the chamber, and laid it in her bound, no longer hand. Her fingers closed around it. Clumsy, but they closed. Safety's on the trigger. You point it at anything that isn't me, you don't think you pull. You hear? Yes. He dragged her. He hated dragging her. She weighed maybe 140 pounds, and every pound was a person. But there was no time for gentle across the floor to the narrow space between the wood stove and the back wall. He piled the 2 wool blankets around her. He wedged his own pillow behind her head. He laid the Remington which he had retrieved out of the snow while she was unconscious across her lap. You got 2 long guns in reach and a pistol in your hand, he said. You're better armed than half the Marines I served with. You with me? Her eyes found his. The gray in them was warmer now. A little. What's your name again? Ethan. Ethan. Thank you. Thank me when we're out of this. He stood up. He walked to the front door. He did not lock it. He opened it. Showage. The cold slapped his face. The second front was coming in fast. Fat white flakes on a slanting wind, the kind that halved visibility every 10 minutes. Good. He needed the storm. He stepped out onto the porch, like a man taking his coffee to watch the weather, his hands in his jacket pockets, the cig tucked in the right one, with the safety off, and the hammer down. He raised his left hand and waved. Morning. The 2 men stopped at about 80 yards. They looked at each other. The left one said something the right one didn't like. The right one came forward alone, 10 more yards close enough now that Ethan could see the face under the watch-cap 30s, bearded a scar along the left jaw that said he'd been in a knife fight once, and had not been the one who started it. Morning, the man called back. Friendly. Too friendly. You Mr. Steele. That's me. Name's Harlan. My partner's Briggs. We're with the Leilano Sheriff's Department working a missing persons case. It was a good lie. It had the right number of details. A name, a partner's name, a department. Ethan nodded slowly, as if he was considering it. Uh-huh. Where are your badges? Back in the truck. Roads drifted in. We walked from the ridge. Uh-huh. What's your unit number? A pause. Just a beat too long. 22. That's a state trooper number, Harlan. Sheriff's deputies in Leelanau use 3 digits. The friendly went out of Harlan's face the way a light goes out of a window. Sir, we just need to ask you a few questions. Have you seen a woman in the last 24 hours, mid-30s, dark hair, maybe injured, maybe disoriented? She's a witness in an ongoing investigation. Nope, Ethan said. Haven't seen a soul since Thursday. Me and my girl, we like it quiet. Your girl. My daughter. She in there with you right now? Yep. How old? Ethan smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile he'd worn the day he'd cleared a compound outside Kunar, and one of the men in his team had later told him over beers and Coronado Steel. "You grin like that again. I'm gonna start sleeping with a gun." 7, he said. "Why do you want to know how old my daughter is, Harlan?" Harlan took a half step back. Briggs, still 40 yards away, still holding, shifted the rifle on its sling. It was a small movement. A civilian wouldn't have caught it. Ethan caught it. "Sir," Harlan said carefully, "I'm gonna need you to step off the porch with your hands where I can see them." "No, you're not." "Excuse me. You're not a deputy, Harlan. You're Vulture. I saw the patch on your buddy's sleeve from the kitchen window. Now I am going to give you about 15 seconds to turn around and walk back up that driveway, and if you do that, I swear to God on my grandfather's grave I will let you go. If you don't, you are going to have a very bad morning." Harlan went very still. There was a species of man Ethan knew who in a moment like this would reach for his weapon without thinking. And there was another species who would reach for his phone. And there was a third species, the most dangerous one, the one you really had to watch, who would go quiet and do math. Harlan, to his credit, was the third kind. "Mr. Steele," he said, "I'm going to be straight with you. You are in over your head, brother, way over. You have no idea who you're messing with. The woman inside that cabin is a federal agent who has stolen classified material. We are here to recover that material. That is all. Give us the drive, we walk out of here, nobody gets hurt, and your little girl gets to keep her daddy." Funny way of asking. "I'm not asking. I'm offering." Yeah. See the problem with that, Harlan? She didn't steal anything. She earned it. And the second problem with that is, I don't believe a goddamn word you just said. "Mr. Steele." 13 seconds. Briggs, the one with the rifle, began to move. Not toward the porch, toward the tree line on Ethan's left. Flanking. Ethan saw it. 12. Harlan raised both hands a little, palms forward, placating. "Easy. Easy, brother. Nobody wants shooting." "You have 10. Listen. 8. And then from inside the cabin, from the loft, Ethan was going to remember this for the rest of his life, came Maya's voice, clear and small, and absolutely calm, through the cracked open window above his head. "Dad, he's got a man in the trees." Briggs had been moving quiet. He had not been moving quiet enough for a 7-year-old whose father had taught her for fun, for games, for bedtime stories, to watch the edges of a room the way a cat watches a bird. Harlan's face went through several things very fast. Ethan drew. The cig came out of his pocket with the kind of economy that 12 years of muscle memory will give you, and the first round was in Harlan's vest before Harlan's hand reached the grip of his own sidearm. Harlan went backward into the snow. Not dead, the vest had caught it. Ethan had aimed for center mass on purpose. You don't headshoot a man who might still have information you need, but down hard, the wind gone out of him in a single explosive grunt. The second round went high and left into the tree line, where Ethan had seen a dark shape move half a second earlier, and there was a yell, and the rifle in Briggs's hands went off a wild burst, 3 rounds, chewing, sighting off the corner of the porch behind Ethan's shoulder. And Ethan was already moving off the porch, rolling into the snow, coming up with the cig in a 2-handed grip, and his left eye watering from the cold. Maya the switch now. Inside the cabin in the loft, a 7-year-old girl, who had never in her life disobeyed her father, reached up, found the red toggle on the wall her daddy had bolted there 3 summers ago, and flipped it. Floodlights. Tower. 6 of them. 2,000 lumens each ringed around the cabin on the eaves, hooked to a deep cycle marine battery in the crawl space. Ethan had installed them the first spring after Sarah died, because a man alone with a little girl in the woods sleeps better with switches. He had never fired them in anger. He had never planned to. They turned the yard white. Briggs, running now, sprinting along the tree line with the AR up, was suddenly lit from 3 sides at once, and for 1/2 second he did the thing every shooter does when the light hits him. Wrong, he flinched. His rifle dipped. It was all Ethan needed. He fired twice. The first round missed. The second took Briggs low through the thigh, and Briggs went down into the snow screaming. "Don't move. Don't you move." Briggs didn't move. Briggs was past moving. He was holding his leg with both hands and saying, "Oh God," over and over, the way men do the rifle 10 feet from his outstretched fingertips. Ethan pivoted back to Harlan. Harlan was already on his knees, already going for the sidearm. "No." Harlan froze. 2 fingers, pistol, out of the holster, onto the porch, now. Harlan did it. Backup piece, ankle, out. Harlan hesitated. "I will put the next one in your face, Harlan. I have had exactly enough of my morning to do it." Harlan did it. "On your stomach, hands behind your head, fingers laced." Harlan did it. Ethan was breathing hard, but his hands were not shaking, and there was a part of him, a part he had almost forgotten was in there, that was humming with the cold, clean music of a thing he used to be very, very good at. He crossed to Harlan and pressed the muzzle of the cig into the base of the man's skull and patted him down one-handed. Knife. Phone. Another knife. A burner phone. A set of zip ties, of course, which Ethan used because it seemed fitting, to restrain Harlan's wrists behind his back. "Briggs?" "Yeah," Briggs said. He was pale. He was bleeding steady, but not fast. The round had not hit the femoral. "You going to live?" "I think so." "Good. Crawl toward me, slow. No sudden moves. If I see a hand do anything, I don't like you're a different kind of problem." Briggs crawled. Ethan zip-tied him too. He dragged both men one at a time around to the back of the cabin, out of sight of the driveway, because whoever was coming next was going to come looking at the front door first, and you wanted your hostages where the next guys couldn't see them without walking. He pulled Briggs's belt off and cinched it around the thigh wound as a field tourniquet. Not because he cared, because a dead prisoner was a useless prisoner, and Ethan Steele had not survived 12 years of war by leaving useful intelligence to bleed out in the snow. He walked back around to the porch. He walked up the steps. He opened the door. Maya was standing in the middle of the living room, the Coleman lantern hanging from her small fist, her eyes wet, but not crying her chin up. She had come down from the loft after the shooting stopped. She had not been told to. She had come down because that was the kind of kid she was. "Dad." "I'm okay, honey. Mo." She ran at him. He caught her. He held her against his chest for exactly one long breath, and then he set her down because there was no time. There was never any time, and he crossed to the wood stove. Claire was sitting up. The Remington was in her lap. The Springfield was in her hand. Her finger was off the trigger, but her eyes were open and clear. "You got them," she said. "I got them." "Alive?" "Yes." She let out a long breath. She closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. "Their names. Harlan and Briggs, they say." The patch said Vulture. Vulture. She said the word like it tasted bad. "Tim and I were running a wire on one of their safe houses outside Flint. That's how we got the names." The USB. The USB. Ethan crouched beside her. He took her hand. Her skin was warmer. Still cold, still too cold, but warmer. "Rourke's got a state trooper coming. 30 minutes out, probably less now. I've got to ask you something. Claire and I need you to be straight with me." "Ask." "The men I just took down are the first wave. Yes or no?" "Yes." "How many are coming?" She closed her eyes. "For a package this size," she said, "with my name on it and Tim's, probably 8 to 12. A full team, 2 vehicles. They'll stage off the main road, drop 2 on foot, like these ones, keep the rest in reserve until the scouts check in. When the scouts don't check in, they come loud. They come loud." Ethan nodded slowly. He stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out across the white meadow where he had found her hand 47 minutes ago, where the snow was already starting to fill in the dragging marks and the bloodstains and the ruin of what had been his quiet morning. He walked to the safe under his bed. He opened it.
Member Circle.
He took out the AR-15 three-loaded magazines and a Kevlar plate carrier that had not been on his body since the day he had walked out of Coronado 2 years ago. He laid them on the kitchen table. And then Ethan Steele, Navy SEAL single father, a man who had told himself for 2 years that he was done with all of it, began very methodically to put the carrier on.
Demika.
The Velcro made a sound he had not heard in 2 years, and it stopped him for one half beat in the middle of his kitchen, the way a song you used to love will stop you in a grocery store. He shook it off. He tightened the side straps. He checked the plates were seated. He slid the 3 magazines into the front pouches, chambered around in the AR, checked the safety, and laid the rifle across the table within reach. Dad. Maya was watching him from the doorway. Yeah, honey. Is that the thing you used to wear? Yes. You said you weren't going to wear it anymore. He turned around. She was standing very straight. She had the Coleman in both hands now cradled against her chest, the way other little girls cradled dolls. Her black hair was still tangled from sleep. She was 7 years old, and she was in that moment the most grown person in the room. Maya, come here. She came. He dropped to one knee. The plate carrier creaked. I'm going to tell you something my dad told me one time, and I want you to remember it even when I'm not around to remind you. Are you listening? Yes. A promise isn't something you keep when it's easy. A promise is something you keep when it costs you. When I told you I was done with this, I meant it. I still mean it. But right now, there's a lady in our living room who needs me to be the thing I used to be for about 1 more hour. After that, I'm done again. For real. Okay. You believe me? Yes. Good. He touched her forehead with his, just for a second. You're the whole world, you know that. I know. Go get the backpack out of the hall closet, the green one, and put your boots on, the warm ones. Are we leaving? No, honey. But if I say go, you need to already be ready to go. Understand? Yes, Dad. She went. Claire had been watching from her place against the wood stove. When Maya was out of the room, she said quietly, "She's something else. She's her mother's kid." Where's her mother? Cemetery in Petoskey. Claire's face changed. Not pity, something more careful than that. Recognition, maybe the look of a person who had sat beside her own set of graves and knew better than to say anything clever about them. I'm sorry. 2 years this March. I'm still sorry. Ethan nodded once and changed the subject the way a man will when he has no other way to go on breathing. Tell me about Tim. Tim. She let out a breath that was half a laugh and half something worse. Tim Davis, 44, ex-Coast Guard. Wife Deborah, 2 boys 10 and 13. He's been my partner for 6 years. He's the best investigator I've ever worked with, and he cannot, to save his own life, remember his wedding anniversary. I have to remind him. You two? No. She said it firm. No. Never. Tim is a good man, and his wife is a good woman, and I don't do that. I love him the way you love a brother who is better than you are. Where was he taken? Stakeout position north of Honor. We had a fish camp hunting cabin they'd been using as a drop. Tim was on the OP. I was running relief. He made a check-in at 2200. He missed the 0200. I went out to get him. The cabin was empty. His truck was still there. His rifle was still there. His coat was on the floor. They took him out of his boots, Ethan. Out of his boots. Like he'd been there and then he just wasn't. Ethan had seen that once. A village in the Korengal. A man who was there when they cleared one room and gone when they came back through. You learned after a while to feel the draft where somebody had been. They knew your schedule. They knew everything. Which means somebody told them. Yes. And the sheriff. Sheriff Earl Boyd. Elected 3 terms. Popular, Sunday school teacher, coaches Little League. His cousin runs the motel where we were working out of. 2 days ago, I pulled his banking records. He's got $250,000 in a Cayman account he cannot possibly explain. Jesus. It gets worse. How much worse? She looked at him. The gray in her eyes was clear now, fully clear, the woman under the hypothermia coming back up through the ice like a face surfacing in a frozen pond. The USB in your pocket, she said, has names on it, Ethan. Names you are going to recognize. A United States Congressman from Indiana, a deputy director at Customs and Border Protection, a federal judge on the 6th Circuit, a former White House communications director. I have banking records for all 4 of them, and video surveillance of 3. This ring is not a ring. It is a highway. It runs from Windsor, Ontario, down through Detroit, through Flint, up through Honor and into Canada by boat in the summer and by snow machine in the winter. They're moving women, Ethan, and teenage girls, and a few boys. Some of them come back broken. Most of them don't come back. Ethan sat down at his kitchen table. He put his hands flat on the wood. He closed his eyes for exactly 3 seconds. How long have you been on this? 18 months. How many people in the Bureau know what you know? Before Tim got taken, 5. After? I don't know anymore. That's the problem. Somebody told them. He opened his eyes. He looked at her. You think somebody in your own office? I know somebody in my own office.
Monday.
The wood stove popped. Outside, the storm had quit flirting and committed. The snow was coming down in sheets now, the kind of Michigan lake effect that could drop 6 inches in an hour and shut a county down for a day. It should have been an obstacle. It was an ally. A second wave of vulture men walking into this cabin in a whiteout was a second wave of vulture men walking half-blind. Ethan Steele knew how to move half-blind. Vulture Strategic Solutions might know how too. But they didn't know the ground. He did. Claire, you said 8 to 12. Best estimate. 2 vehicles. Probably. 1 primary team, 1 overwatch. They'll leave a driver with each. So call it 10 operators on foot, 2 drivers holding. About that. How long before they realize their scouts aren't calling in? She looked at the clock on the mantel. Check-in is usually every 20 minutes. Harlan and Briggs went down at about 6:50. About. Then the next check-in they miss will be at 7:10. They'll give it another 10 for weather. So 7:20, they know something's wrong. 7:30, they move. 22 minutes. 21. Ethan stood up. Maya. She came back in. The green pack was on her shoulders. Her boots were laced. She had put a scarf on and a pink wool hat that had been Sarah's once, that she had insisted on wearing to kindergarten the week Sarah died and every day since. It was a little big on her. It was perfect. You look ready. I'm ready. I'm going to show you something. Come with me. He walked her to the pantry. He pulled the shelves of canned food aside. They were hinged, not nailed. He'd built the cabin that way on purpose, and behind them was a plywood panel with a ring latch. He pulled the panel open. A crawl space. Not the whole crawl space under the cabin. A dugout corner 8 feet by 6 lined with plywood and carpet remnants, and a battery-powered LED with 2 sleeping bags, and a case of water, and a jar of peanut butter, and a sleeve of saltines, and a small hand-cranked radio. Maya had never seen it. Dad. It's a hide, honey. Grandpa built the first version of it back in the 70s. I made it nicer. It's been here the whole time. You get in here, you pull this door closed behind you. You latch it from the inside with this hook here, and you do not come out unless you hear my voice saying your mother's name. Sarah. That's right, Sarah. If you hear any other voice, any other word, any other anything, you stay. You stay a day. You stay 2 days. You stay a week. There's food and water for a week. The radio works. Rourke knows this hide exists. He helped me build the second one. He will come for you. Do you understand me? Yes, Dad. Atlas goes with you. The dog, hearing his name, came around the corner of the kitchen and sat. Atlas, stay with Maya. Guard. Atlas whined. Atlas understood. Maya, look at me. She looked at him. I love you. I love you more than anything that has ever been or ever will be, and your mother loved you like that too, and if anything happens to me today, anything, you know that your whole life. You hear me. I hear you. Get in. She got in. Atlas followed her. She sat down on the sleeping bag with the pink hat slightly crooked and the Coleman lantern in her lap, and she looked up at him with an expression that would eat him alive later, but not now. Daddy. Yeah. Don't die. I won't, baby. He closed the door. He latched the outer catch for her. He heard the little click of the inner hook going home on her side. He slid the pantry shelves back into place. He walked back into the living room. He went to Claire. He crouched. How warm are you? Warm enough to move, not warm enough to run. You need to be able to move. I can move. Can you shoot? She raised the Springfield. She held it in a two-handed grip that was steadier than Ethan expected. I can shoot. Then here's how this goes. You stay right where you are. Back to the wood stove, which is my thermal baffle against anybody trying to read the house with FLIR through the windows. You have the whole front door in your field of fire. Anybody who comes through that door who is not me and is not a uniformed state trooper with a badge in their hand, you do not warn them, you do not wait for them to identify you. Put 3 in the chest and 1 in the head, and you don't stop until they stop. Are we clear? We're clear. I'm going out. Ethan? Yes. Don't die either. He almost smiled. He did not quite make it to a smile. Nobody's dying today but the people who showed up to kill us. That's the only deal I'll take. He stood. He picked up the AR. He went to the back door. He cracked it. The cold came in. He slipped out. Day. The second front was in full voice now. He could see maybe 60 yards in any direction, and that only in flashes when the wind shifted. The temperature had dropped another 3 degrees. His breath came out of him in a white plume that the wind stole away before he could finish the exhale. He moved along the side of the cabin under the eaves where the snow had not yet accumulated, where his boots made almost no sound. He crossed the open gap between the cabin and the woodshed in 6 long strides, stopped, listened, counted to 10. He went on. The terrain around the cabin had been for 25 years Ethan Steele's backyard and training ground. He knew where the deadfall was. He knew which pines grew close enough to each other to form a blind. He knew that the creek to the south, which ran fast and never froze quite all the way, made a kind of white noise wall that a man could use to cover his own footfalls. He knew that there was a little rise about 120 yards north of the cabin, just off the access road, that commanded the whole approach. He went to the rise. He laid down in the snow on his stomach. He put the AR up on its bipod. He opened the glass of the scope and breathed on it and wiped it with the inside of his glove. He settled in. He waited. The sat phone in his chest pocket buzzed once. He pulled it up. Rourke. Text not voice. Trooper is Tom Laird. 12 minutes out. Coming in from the north. Gray Tahoe unmarked flashing blues in grill only. Do not shoot him. Ethan thumbed back, copy. What about the federal team? A pause. 64 minutes. They're getting weather delays out of Cleveland. Hold. Ethan thumbed back, holding. He put the phone away. He watched the access road. Minute ticked. Minute ticked. At 7:28, 15 seconds early by Claire's estimate, these guys were prompt. He saw them. 2 vehicles on the access road. Both black. Both big. A Chevy Tahoe in the lead and a lifted pickup truck behind. They stopped at the same point where Harlan and Briggs had stopped to walk in. They sat there with their lights off for 45 seconds. Then the doors opened. 6 men out of the Tahoe. 4 men out of the truck. 10. Claire had called it. They didn't move in a scrum. They moved in 2 elements, a 6-man assault group and a 4-man flanking group. They were quiet. They were serious. Ethan watched them break out of the column and start to work their way up through the woods in a pattern that he had seen before in Iraq in a different color of uniform, but executed with the same economy. These were not amateurs. His scope found the shape he wanted. The assault group leader. Tall. Red beard. A rifle Ethan recognized as a Geisel Upper SR-25 suppressed. A man with an SR-25 in 20 below Michigan snow was a man with money, and a man with money was a man who mattered to the people paying him. Ethan settled the crosshairs on the red beard. He let his breath out halfway. He let the world get very still. And then he hesitated. He hesitated because the cold fact was that once he fired, everything changed. Once he fired, these men knew exactly where he was. Once he fired, the 4-man flanking group would collapse toward his rise, and he would have at best 90 seconds before he was a dead man or a man on the move. Once he fired, the trooper, who was 12 minutes out, would roll into an active gunfight that a lone state cop in a Tahoe was in no way equipped to win. He lifted his eye off the scope. He thought steel. Think. He thought, you don't have to kill all 10, you just have to make them slow down. And then he thought about the woodshed. The woodshed was 70 yards behind him at the edge of the cabin's yard. It had a propane generator in it, a 5-kilowatt Honda. He ran for the well pump and the freezer. It had 2 20-pound tanks. It had a 40-gallon drum of diesel he kept for the snowblower. It also had against the back wall under a tarp, a thing Ethan had bought 6 years ago from a man at a county fair and never in his life thought he'd use a surplus army trip flare, the kind you buried a stake into the ground and ran a wire across. Tight. He had 4 of them. They were not weapons, but they were very bright and they were very loud, and they lit up a half-acre of snow like the second coming of a small sun. He slid backward off the rise. He went to the woodshed at a dead sprint, keeping to the cabin's blind side, his boots finding the route automatically. He had 3 minutes to do this, maybe 4. He went into the shed. He grabbed the metal ammo can where the flares lived. He pulled out all 4. He grabbed a spool of tripwire. He grabbed a handful of the long metal stakes. He came back out. The vulture team was still moving, still quiet, still threading through his trees, but they were close now, maybe 200 yards and closing. The 4-man flanker was almost to the creek. Ethan moved.
Dismember.
He set the first flare 40 yards in front of the porch on the line any attacker would have to cross to reach the front door. The stake driven deep into the frozen ground with the butt of his rifle because he didn't have a hammer and didn't have time to find one. He ran the wire across the natural approach path low 2 inches off the snow and anchored it to the base of a maple. He set the second flare at the southwest corner of the cabin, covering the flank. He set the third one behind the woodshed because he had a feeling. He set the fourth one 15 feet in front of his own rise because if they came for him, he wanted to see them first. He was back on his stomach on the rise with the AR in his shoulder with 90 seconds to spare. He keyed the sat phone. Voice this time whispered tight. Rourke, 10 hostiles on approach split 6 and 4. SR-25s, suppressed. I'm setting off some noise and light on their flank in about 60 seconds. Tell Laird to come in loud when he gets here. I want them to think cavalry's already here. Do not roll him in quiet. Copy all. Tell him one thing. Go. Tell him if he sees a 7-year-old girl, her name is Maya, and she knows the code word is Sarah. A pause. Sarah. Sarah. Copy Steele. He's got it.
Show.
Ethan killed the line. He slid the phone into his chest pocket and buttoned it down. He put his eye back on the scope. He found the red beard again, the assault leader, who was now at about 140 yards and closing on the tripwire he could not see in the whiteout. 40 yards to the wire. 30. 20. 10. The Redbeard's boot came down on the tripwire, and the whole north side of the meadow erupted in magnesium-white light and a bang like a shotgun fired into a trash can. The 6-man assault group scattered. 2 of them went to ground immediately. 2 of them fired blind into the brush. One of them, it was the Redbeard, shouted something Ethan couldn't hear from 140 yards away, but could read in his whole body language, which was the body language of a team leader whose day had just gone very badly, very fast. Ethan's first round of the morning went through the Redbeard's neck. He was dead before he hit the snow. The second man, the one to Redbeard's left carrying what looked like a shorter carbine, took a hit in the shoulder and went down screaming. The flanking group on the creek side began to turn back toward the main element, which was the moment Ethan had been waiting for, and he put a round into the snow between their feet, and then another fast, as his trigger finger would move, and the flankers went prone and started shooting in 3 different directions at 3 different targets that were not there, which was when the second flare, the one on the southwest corner, went off, because one of the flankers stepped on its wire. A second bang. A second white sun. Now the Vulture men had a problem. They had incoming fire from a shooter they could not locate. They had illumination flares going off on their blind side. They had casualties. They had a storm cutting their visibility to 20-yard flashes. And they had, though they did not yet know it, a Michigan State Police Tahoe gray and unmarked, and driven by a trooper named Tom Laird, who had been Rourke's hunting buddy for 11 years, coming down the access road behind them at 40 miles an hour, with its siren on full, and its blue and reds lighting up the trees. The siren hit them like a second bomb. Ethan watched through the scope as the Vulture team's discipline cracked, not broke, but cracked. The first hairline, and he put another round into the assault element, this time into the thigh of a man trying to rally the group, and the man went down in a spray of red snow. And then, because the world has a sense of humor, Atlas began to bark inside the cabin. Not the warning bark, not the alarm bark. The furious bark. The bark he made at the television during war movies. The bark of a retired military working dog who could hear suppressed rifle fire through 2 inches of pine siding and knew exactly what it meant, and who had been locked in a hole with a 7-year-old girl for reasons he profoundly disagreed with. From the Vulture team's perspective, in the fog, and the flares, and the sirens, and the small blooming spots of their own blood on the snow, it sounded exactly like a K-9 unit had just arrived. Ethan saw the moment it broke.
Right.
The second in command, a thick-shouldered man with a beard like frost, looked at the road and looked at the trees and looked at the body of the Redbeard in the snow, and made the hardest decision a private contractor ever makes, which is the decision that the contract is not worth the casket. He yelled something. The Vulture team began to fall back. Not in panic. Ethan would later give them that. They fell back in bounds, 2 men firing, while 2 men moved disciplined even now, but they fell back toward the vehicles, and Ethan let them go. He had 8 rounds left in the magazine, and a trooper coming in hot, and a federal team an hour away. And what he needed now was not more bodies on his property. What he needed was time. He gave them a last round into the snow 10 feet in front of the last retreating shooter. A reminder, and then he held his fire. He watched them load their wounded into the truck. He watched them pull out. He watched them go. And when they were gone, when the only sound on the access road was the fading whoop of the Tahoe's siren and the ringing in his own ears, and the sound of his 7-year-old daughter, somewhere underneath the pantry floor, trying to calm a 90-pound German Shepherd Ethan Steele, rolled onto his back in the snow. Closed his eyes, and for the first time since his wife had died 2 years ago, on a Thursday he laughed. It was not a happy laugh, but it was a laugh, and he had forgotten he could still make one. The laugh didn't last long. It never did with men like Ethan. He rolled back onto his stomach, swept the scope across the tree line one more time, counted bodies 2 down on the access road, a long smear of blood disappearing into the snow, where the Vulture team had dragged their wounded, and made himself lie there for another 90 seconds before he moved. You never got up right after a firefight. You waited. You let the silence prove itself. He had watched a good man get shot through the throat once in Ramadi, because he stood up at 60 seconds instead of 2 minutes, and Ethan had carried the lesson home in his chest like a piece of shrapnel.
Barkose.
The Tahoe's siren cut off. Then a voice amplified, carrying across the meadow in the particular flat tone that American state troopers have been using for 50 years. Ethan Steele, this is Trooper Thomas Laird, Michigan State Police. I am at your driveway. I am alone. I am a friend of Daniel Rourke. I am coming up to the porch with my hands visible. Please do not shoot me. Ethan keyed the sat phone. Rourke. Go. Your boy's here. Behave. No promises. He pulled himself out of the snow, slung the AR across his back, and walked down off the rise. His legs were stiffer than he liked. The cold had been into him for nearly 2 hours now, and his hip, the one he'd had pinned with a titanium rod after Helmand was sending him the slow, ugly ache it sent him when the weather dropped below zero. He ignored it. He'd been ignoring it for 4 years. He came around the front corner of the cabin, and Laird was standing at the foot of the porch steps with his hands out empty, mid-50s, big jaw, bigger shoulders, a regulation gray. Stetson already dark with snow. His sidearm was still in the holster. His other hand held up his badge. Mr. Steele? Trooper? Dan told me you were a pleasant conversationalist. Dan lies. Laird almost smiled. Not quite. He was looking past Ethan's shoulder at the 2 bodies in the snow, and then at the scorch marks in the yard from the flares, and then at the side of the cabin where Briggs was still zip-tied to a porch post, with his leg tourniqueted and his face a bad color. Son of a... I pulled 3 men off your state trooper, 2 alive. Want to make an arrest. I want to make about 9 arrests, Mr. Steele. You got the other 7 nearby. They left. In which direction? South. Black Tahoe lifted Ford pickup. 2 wounded minimum, probably 3, maybe 4. They'll need a doc who doesn't ask questions. Start with the clinics between here and Manistee. Laird keyed his shoulder mic and spoke quietly, putting out a bolo that did not use the word vulture and did not use the word federal. He was an old hand. He knew when to keep a radio channel clean. When he was done, he looked at Ethan. The agent, inside, alive, stable but hypothermic. And the girl Dan said something about somewhere safe. Good, because I just passed 2 more vehicles heading north on 669 that I did not like the looks of, and I've got a feeling your morning is not done. Ethan's stomach dropped 3 inches. More vulture. Couldn't tell, but one of them was a sheriff's department Suburban out of Leelanau, and the other was a white panel van with no plates, and the Suburban was not flashing, which is curious given there is an active incident on his county line he has not yet been notified of. Boyd. I didn't say that name. You didn't have to. Laird glanced at the cabin, at the 2 dead men in the snow, at the tourniqueted prisoner on his porch, at the tripwires and the flare craters and the spent brass of a firefight that was going to take a team of investigators 3 days to reconstruct. Mr. Steele. Yeah. Dan told me you were a SEAL. I was. He told me you retired. I did. He told me you had a little girl. I do. Where is she right now, exactly? Ethan looked at him. Weighed the man in 1 second flat, the way he had learned to do in rooms full of strangers in bad parts of the world. Laird's eyes were gray-blue, and they did not blink. Under the pantry. She's safe. Safer than any of us. Then let's get your agent out of that cabin and into my Tahoe and about 40 miles closer to a hospital before Sheriff Boyd shows up to personally offer his condolences. They went inside. Claire had moved. She was on her feet barely, her hand braced against the wood stove, the Springfield at low ready in her other hand. When she saw the uniform, she didn't lower the pistol right away. She stared at the badge. She stared at Laird's face. She stared at the service weapon in his holster. Only when her own training had completed its cold little checklist did the muzzle come down, Agent Morgan. Laird took his Stetson off. Ma'am, Tom Laird, Gaylord Post. Dan Rourke and I were in Desert Storm together. I am not part of whatever Sheriff Boyd has going on. You have my word on that. Claire nodded slow. My partner. We don't know yet, ma'am. We're looking. Thank you. You need a hospital. I need a hospital where nobody will know I'm there. I know one. Thank you. Laird looked at Ethan. Let's move. 10 minutes. Mr. Steele, we don't have 10. 10 trooper. I have to get my daughter out from under my kitchen, and I am not going to rush that. She's 7. 10 minutes. Laird hesitated, then he nodded once. 10. Ethan walked to the pantry. He pulled the shelves back. He knelt down and put his mouth close to the plywood door. Maya, Sarah. A long, long pause. Then from the other side a small voice cracked with relief. Daddy! Sarah, honey, Sarah, you can come out. The inner hook clicked. The door opened. Atlas came out first because Atlas was Atlas, and the dog went straight for Ethan's face, and then straight for his boots, and then straight for the front door, where he stood barking once hard at the whole world that had threatened his people. Maya came out second. The Coleman was still in her fist. The pink hat was still slightly crooked. She did not run at him this time. She walked. She walked like a little adult right into his arms, and she put her face against the plate carrier and stayed there, not crying, just breathing. You were so brave, baby. Were you scared, Dad? Yes. Really scared? Yes. I was really scared too. I know. Can we go somewhere now? Yes, honey, we can go somewhere now. That's. He carried her to the living room. He set her down on the rug. He turned to Claire, who was watching the two of them with an expression he couldn't read and didn't want to try to. Claire, we're moving. Trooper Laird's got a hospital. Rourke's got federal assets 90 minutes out. Can you walk to the Tahoe? I can walk. You can lean on me. I can walk? He almost grinned. Copy that, Agent. Laird had stepped back outside to get Briggs into the back of the Tahoe and secure the scene around the two bodies. Ethan could hear him on the radio calling for a forensics team out of Traverse City, using careful words that did not name names. In the kitchen, Ethan grabbed a duffel and started throwing things into it. Ammunition. 2 bottles of water. The first aid kit. Maya's stuffed bear that she had left on the couch the night before. Sarah's old brown scarf out of the hallway closet, the one that still 2 years later smelled very faintly like her. He did not know why he grabbed it. He grabbed it. Claire was watching him. Ethan. Yeah. The USB. In my pocket. Give it to me. He hesitated. Mate. Give it to me. It stays with me. If anything happens between here and the hospital, the chain of evidence is cleaner if it never leaves my person. I can testify I had it on me the whole time. He pulled the drive out of his chest pocket. He handed it to her. She tucked it into the waistband of her slacks, under 3 layers of borrowed wool blanket, and she patted it once, and she looked at him. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I am thanking you now. They went out to the Tahoe. The second front was still coming down in sheets. The temperature had bottomed out at 20 below with the wind, and Ethan's breath had stopped making plumes and started making crystals. Laird had the Tahoe's heater roaring. Briggs was in the cargo compartment, zip-cuffed to a cargo loop, staring straight ahead and saying nothing. Harlan, it turned out, was in the second row, also zip-cuffed, also silent, and when Ethan saw him, he stopped for a moment. You said you were going to let me walk, Mr. Steele. You had 15 seconds. You used them poorly. My employer is not going to... Your employer, Claire said from where Ethan was easing her into the front passenger seat, is a corpse-walking Harlan. I've got your payroll. I've got your safe houses. I've got the account number your kid's tuition comes out of. By Friday, your employer is a federal RICO case with 17 defendants and a life without parole menu. So unless you want to be item number 18, I'd spend this car ride thinking about what you want to tell the U.S. attorney when we park. Harlan looked at her. Harlan closed his mouth. Maya climbed into the back seat and buckled herself in. Atlas jumped in beside her and put his head across her lap. Ethan got in the back on the other side, the AR laid barrel down between his knees, the cig still warm in the pocket of his jacket. Laird pulled out. For the first 3 miles, nobody spoke. The road was a tunnel of white. The Tahoe's tires sang. Laird drove like a man who had driven Michigan blizzards every January of his adult life, which was because he had. It was Maya who broke the silence. Dad. Yeah. Is Claire gonna be okay? Yes, honey. Are we gonna be okay? Yes, honey. Are you gonna be okay? He looked at her. Her black hair was sticking out from under the pink hat. Her eyes, her mother's eyes, black as river stones, were fixed on his face, and there was something in them that had not been there an hour ago. Something older. Something he was going to have to unpack with her over months, over years, in quiet kitchens and car rides, and at the foot of her bed when she couldn't sleep. Yeah, baby, I'm gonna be okay. You shot somebody. It was not an accusation. It was a statement. She had heard the shots through the pantry floor. She had heard the bark of the AR and the bang of the flares and the scream of Briggs, and she had done the math of a 7-year-old who had a father she trusted. Ethan took her small hand in his. I did. Were they going to hurt us? Yes. So you had to? Yes. Okay. She put her head on his arm. Atlas put his head on her leg. They drove. Up in the front seat, Claire had closed her eyes. She was not asleep. Ethan could see her lips moving, not counting this time, but the other thing, the prayer thing. He watched her out of the corner of his eye and did not look too long. A praying woman deserves a little privacy. The sat phone buzzed. Ethan pulled it out. Rourke again. Where are you? He thumbed back in a Tahoe with Laird, headed for the hospital he didn't name. Good. Listen. I just got off a secure call with Special Agent in Charge Reginald Holloway, Detroit Field Office. He is bureau clean. I have known him since Kuwait. He is now aware of the situation, and he is not going through Traverse City SAC, who Morgan already suspected. He is taking over the investigation. He will be in the air in 20 minutes with a 6-agent HRT element. They will meet you at the hospital. Ethan exhaled slow. Copy. Steele. Go.
Man.
One more thing. The SAC up there. The one Morgan suspected has an apartment in Detroit. His bureau salary cannot explain. Holloway is putting a tail on him within the hour. We are going to find out who he's called since 7 this morning. Ethan looked at Claire. Her eyes were still closed. He thumbed back, tell Holloway to keep it dark until after we are off the road. Morgan's partner is still missing. If the SAC is dirty, that is where he will run. Copy. Steele Rourke out. He pocketed the phone. Laird glanced at him in the rear view. That Dan. Yeah. What's the word? Holloway, Detroit, SAC taking over. HRT element inbound. We meet them at the hospital. Good. And the Traverse City SAC is probably who sold her out. Laird was quiet for a long time. Mr. Steele? Yeah. I've been a Michigan State Trooper for 28 years. I have arrested a Catholic priest, a high school superintendent, and a county commissioner, and every single one of them I was sorry about. You know the one thing I have never gotten used to. What's that? That the people in the nicest houses are so often the worst ones in the whole damn county. Claire's eyes opened. Tim. she said quiet. If they have Tim, they have him in a nice house. Laird glanced at her. Ma'am. Tim Davis, my partner. Whoever took him, they wouldn't take him to a warehouse. Warehouses get checked. Storage units get checked. A federal agent interrogation 18 hours in, they'd take him somewhere quiet, somewhere residential, somewhere nobody would look. You got a name? I've got a list. She pulled the USB partway out of her waistband. She looked at it like it was a living thing. On this drive, addresses. There are 47 properties tied to the 4 people I told Ethan about. 11 of them are in Michigan. 6 of those are within 90 minutes of here. Ethan leaned forward. Claire? Yeah. You know Tim is probably dead. She closed her eyes again. She did not answer for a long time. Yeah, she said. I know. I'm sorry. But he might not be, and if he's not, if there's even a chance, somebody has to go get him, and it's gonna have to be soon, because the longer he's in their hands, the less he is when he comes out. Laird said, Ma'am, you are not going anywhere but a hospital bed in the next 12 hours. I know. So who goes? Claire turned in her seat, slowly, painfully. She looked at Ethan. Ethan looked back. The Tahoe hummed under them. The heater roared. Maya had fallen asleep against his shoulder. Atlas had his head on her lap and his eyes on the 2 of them in the front, because Atlas missed nothing. Ethan. No. I didn't. No, Claire. I have a 7-year-old daughter. I am done. I told her I was done. I know what you told her. Then don't ask. I'm asking. But he shook his head. He looked out the window at the whiteout. He thought about Sarah. He thought about the promise he had made Maya in the kitchen an hour ago, the one about being the thing he used to be for 1 more hour, and then being done again for real. 1 more hour had already stretched to 3. Claire. Yeah. If, and I mean if, we narrow the list down to 1 address. 1. Confirmed. Not guesswork. Confirmed. And if the federal team is not able to move on it inside 4 hours because of jurisdictional horseshit or politics or whatever else always eats an hour of these operations, then we can have this conversation. Not before. She watched him for a long moment. Then she nodded. Fair. And Maya goes to Rourke. Yes. And you get cleared by a doctor. And you come with me because I am not going into a house I've never seen after a federal agent I've never met, without the agent who knows him. Her mouth twitched at the corner. Now that's how you negotiate with an FBI agent. I learned from a senator once. Long story. Laird, who had been pretending not to listen, cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Mr. Steele, I know 3 deputies on the Leela Now force who would take that walk with you, sheriff or no sheriff. Good men. Ex-Army. Clean as snow. Good to know. Thank you, trooper. They were quiet a while. The hospital, when it finally appeared out of the weather 42 miles and 56 minutes later, was not a hospital at all. At least not officially. It was a veterans clinic in a town called Kalkaska, a low brick building with a half-empty parking lot and a sign that said, Walk-ins welcome, run by a former Navy corpsman named Reggie Chen, who had set Rourke's broken arm in the Gulf in '91 and had owed him favors ever since. Laird pulled the Tahoe around the back to a service entrance where a man in scrubs was already waiting with a gurney. Reggie, Laird said. Tom. Federal agent, hypothermia, 2+ hours exposure, lacerations on the wrists and ankles from zip ties, possible frostbite on the left foot, conscious and oriented, armed and will remain so. This visit did not happen. Which visit? Exactly. They got Claire onto the gurney. Ethan carried Maya still asleep against his shoulder through a side door and into a small break room where a coffee pot was chugging and a television was playing the Weather Channel with the sound off. He laid her gently on a vinyl couch. He put Sarah's brown scarf under her head like a pillow. Atlas curled up on the floor beside her. Laird stood in the doorway. Mr. Steele. Yeah, Holloway's ETA is 40 minutes. I'm gonna stay on the door till he gets here. You should sit down. I'm gonna sit down. You've been running on adrenaline for about 3 hours. I know what I've been running on. You're gonna crash. I'll crash later. Mr. Steele. Later, trooper. Laird nodded. He went. Ethan sat down on the floor beside the couch. He put his back against the wall. He looked at his daughter, asleep on the vinyl with a police scarf under her head and a combat dog at her feet, and for the first time since the dog had led him into the snow that morning, he felt the shaking in his hands that he had been holding off by sheer will. He let it come. His hands trembled, his shoulders shook, his jaw clamped down. He did not cry. He was not a man who cried easily. But he sat there on the tile floor of a veterans clinic in Kalkaska, Michigan, on a Tuesday morning in late January, and he let himself feel for the first time how close he had come to losing her. Not the shooters. Those were already filed, already processed, already sorted into the drawer in his head-marked work. The thing he let himself feel was what would have happened if Atlas had not barked. If the dog had still been asleep on the rug. If Ethan had been 10 minutes slower out of bed. If Claire had already been dead when he'd gotten to her, and there had been no USB to take, and no names to chase, and the vulture men had come anyway, because vulture men had been coming anyway, it was only the dog. It was only the barking of a stubborn old dog that had put Ethan at the window in time to see them. He put his hand on Atlas's back. "Good boy," he whispered. "Good boy, good boy, good boy." Atlas thumped his tail once. Down the hall, a door opened. Footsteps came. Laird's voice low, saying this way. A new voice answered deep Midwestern calm. A voice that had spent a lot of time in a lot of hard rooms. "Mr. Steele." Ethan stood up. A man was in the doorway, 50s, black, tall, a Navy FBI windbreaker over a collared shirt, a sidearm on his hip, credentials already out. Behind him through the doorway, Ethan could see 4 more agents in tack gear moving down the hall, and a woman in a business suit with a phone to her ear. Special Agent in Charge, Reginald Holloway, Detroit Field Office. Ethan Steele. "Mr. Steele." Holloway stepped into the room. He looked at Maya asleep on the couch. He looked at Atlas. He looked at Ethan. His face was tired and angry, and the particular kind that only tired, angry men ever manage. "I believe," Holloway said quietly, "we have a great deal to talk about." Ethan nodded once, and the two men took each other's measure the way men of a certain kind have been doing in doorways for as long as there have been doorways. "Sit down, sir," Holloway said. "You look like you're about to fall down." "I'm fine." "Mr. Steele, with respect, I have been doing this 31 years. You are not fine. You are running on the last pint of fuel in the tank, and you are going to be useless to me in about 20 minutes if we do not get some calories and some water into you. So sit." Ethan sat. Holloway pulled a chair over from the break room table. He did not sit in it. He stood with one hand on the back of it and looked down at the sleeping child on the couch with an expression that Ethan recognized as the expression of a man who had grandchildren. "She's 7, Ethan said. "I know, Rourke told me." "She did good today." "Rourke told me that too." Holloway's eyes came up. His eyes. "Mr. Steele, I need you to walk me through it. Everything. From the dog at the door. I've got Agent Morgan down the hall with a doctor and a tape recorder, and she's going to do the same thing. I'll match our stories later. For right now, just talk." Ethan talked. Tibbing. He talked for 38 minutes. He did not embellish. He did not leave anything out. He gave Holloway the dog, the hand in the snow, the zip ties, the sat phone call to Rourke, the USB in the heel of the boot, the 2 vulture men walking up the driveway, the trip flares, the red beard, the 10-man team falling back, the Tahoe ride, The conversation Claire had started in the front seat, about Tim Davis being somewhere quiet, somewhere residential, somewhere nice. Holloway did not interrupt. When Ethan was done, Holloway pulled a small notebook out of his jacket and wrote exactly 4 words in it, and Ethan, who had good eyes, even now read them upside down. He is not wrong. Holloway closed the notebook. Mr. Steele, I am going to tell you some things, and I am going to tell them to you because Dan Rourke vouches for you, and because I watched you walk 2 dead vulture operators off your property without asking for a lawyer, and because my people have already found the blood trail the other 6 men left behind in the snow. We are tracking it. We are going to find them. Good. The Traverse City, SAC, is Maria Cuevas. She has been with the Bureau for 22 years. She is currently, as of 40 minutes ago, at a cabin on Torch Lake that is not hers, that is registered to a shell company in Delaware, and that shell company is one of the 47 addresses on Agent Morgan's drive. A tactical team out of Grand Rapids is staging at the other end of the lake as we speak. Ethan went very still. Tim. I don't know yet. We have drone overwatch. We see 3 heat signatures in the main structure. 1 is prone. The other 2 are ambulatory. We will know more in the next hour. The drone has not broken cover. Who's running point on the assault? A woman named Amara Reyes, 12 years HRT. She is my best. Then let her do her job. I intend to. Holloway paused. He looked at Ethan carefully. Agent Morgan is going to ask you to come along. I know.
May.
She is going to ask you because you know the weather, you know the ground, and because you have already proven you will not hesitate when it matters. She is going to ask you because she is afraid, Mr. Steele, that the vulture team you turned back this morning has been paid for Tim Davis too, and she does not know which of my people she can trust. She trusts you. She trusts me because I am ugly enough to not have been bought. That is the entire metric. You passed the same test by owning a sat phone and calling Rourke instead of 911. What's the answer then? The answer is no. Ethan blinked. Mr. Steele, I am not going to ask you to walk into a house in Torch Lake with my tactical team. You are a civilian. You have a child. You have already done more today than the United States government had any right to ask of you. If my people cannot handle a 3-signature structure with a 12-operator HRT element and drone overwatch in clear weather, I have bigger problems than you can fix. What I am going to ask you to do, sir, is stay here. Sit with your daughter. Sit with your dog. Eat the sandwich my agent is going to bring you in 90 seconds, and let us do our jobs. Ethan stared at him. You're telling me to stand down. I am asking you to go home, Mr. Steele. When this is over, that is all I want from you. I want you to be able to go home. Ethan sat with that for a while. He looked at Maya asleep on the vinyl. He looked at the brown scarf under her head. He thought about what he had promised her in the kitchen, and what he had almost reneged on in the Tahoe, and what it was going to mean if he let Holloway's good sense win the argument that his own had been losing. Okay, he said. Okay. Okay. Holloway let out a breath he had apparently been holding. Thank you, Mr. Steele. Tell Claire I tried to go. I'll tell her you tried to go. And Holloway? Yes. If Tim Davis is in that house, you bring him out. You bring him out if he's dead. His wife gets a body. His boys get a grave. You do not leave him. Holloway nodded once heavily. I don't leave people, Mr. Steele. Holloway walked out. The young agent with the sandwich came in 30 seconds later. Turkey and Swiss on sourdough, a bottle of water, 2 ibuprofen. Ethan ate. He drank. He swallowed the pills. He sat on the floor beside his daughter, and he let himself be tired for real, the way he had not let himself be tired in 2 years. Atlas shifted his weight against his hip. Down the hall, phones were ringing. Boots were moving. Boots were. The machinery of the federal government was turning over like the cold engine of a very big truck, and he was for the first time all day not required to push it. Maya stirred. Dad? Right here. Where are we? Hospital. Safe. Is Claire okay? Claire's okay. Did the bad men go away? Most of them. The rest are being handled by the good guys. Are you a good guy, Dad? He almost laughed. It came out sideways. I try to be, honey. You are. Okay. Thank you. Go back to sleep. She went back to sleep. 53 minutes later, Holloway walked back into the break room with his phone in his hand and an expression Ethan could not immediately read. Steele. Yeah. Tim Davis is alive. Ethan closed his eyes for exactly 2 seconds. They had him in the basement. He's in bad shape. Dehydrated, hypothermic, 2 broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder, and a concussion from being pistol whipped at least twice. But he is breathing, and he is talking. First thing he said when Reyes pulled the hood off was, "Tell Morgan the safe is in the floor under the pool table." What was in the safe? Ledgers. Paper ledgers. Mr. Steele, handwritten, going back 11 years. Names, payments, routes, shipments. A woman named Esperanza, who came up through Windsor in 2016 and was never heard from again, with a notation in the margin of what she was sold for. Every congressman on Agent Morgan's list is in those ledgers. Every judge, the deputy at CBP, the White House commsman, and 6 more names we did not have, including, I am telling you this in confidence, Mr. Steele, a sitting United States Senator. Jesus. Yes. What happens now? Now, Holloway said, we begin arrests, quietly, in waves, over the next 72 hours. The Bureau has assembled a dedicated task force under the Deputy Attorney General, completely firewalled from the offices I do not trust. We have sealed indictments. We have cooperating witnesses. We have evidence that will hold up in federal court. We have done this before, Mr. Steele, and we are going to do it again. And by the end of this week, a great many people are going to be sitting across from a great many of my agents in rooms without windows. Cuevas. Maria Cuevas was taken into custody at the Torch Lake cabin 40 minutes ago. She did not fire her weapon. She did not resist. She asked for a lawyer, and she asked for her phone, and we gave her the first and not the second. Boyd. Sheriff Boyd was arrested by Michigan State Police at his residence in Leland 22 minutes ago. Trooper Laird, whom I believe you've met, made a point of handling the cuffs personally. Good. Agent Morgan wants to see you. Ethan stood. His hips screamed. He ignored it. Maya. Leave her. I'll have an agent sit with her. An agent I've met. I'll have Reyes do it. She'll be back from Torch Lake in 20. Until then, Trooper Laird is 3 feet from this door, and he is not going to move. Ethan nodded. He looked at Maya one more time. He looked at Atlas. He put his hand on the dog's head and said, "Stay." Atlas didn't move. He followed Holloway down the hall. Claire was in a small private room at the back of the clinic, sitting up in a hospital bed with an IV in her arm and 2 heated blankets over her legs. Her hair had been washed and combed. Her wrists and ankles were bandaged. The bruise along her jaw was coming up through the skin like a slow purple tide. She looked like a woman who had been to hell and come halfway back, and she had the USB drive in a clear plastic evidence bag on the rolling tray beside her, and she was signing a chain of custody form with her left hand, because her right was shaking too much to hold a pen. Ethan. Claire. Tim's alive. I heard. His wife's on her way up from Ohio. Good. They got the ledgers. I heard that too. They got a Senator Ethan. Yeah. She looked at him. She set the pen down. The bruise moved when she tried to smile. You told Holloway no. I told him no. Why? He glanced at the door. Holloway was polite enough to be out in the hallway pretending to read his phone. Claire, I have wanted for about 4 hours to go with you into whatever house was going to save Tim Davis. I have wanted it the way a recovering alcoholic wants a drink on an ugly day. There is a part of me that has not stopped wanting it since I walked out of Coronado, And this morning that part woke up, and it liked being awake, and it wanted to stay awake. You understand what I'm telling you? I understand. But I have a 7-year-old. I know. And I made her a promise. I know. And the United States of America has a whole building full of Amara Reyeses who do this for a living, and they do not need me. Not for this. They needed me this morning because nobody else was there this morning. They do not need me for Torch Lake. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You're a better man than you think you are, Ethan Steele. I'm exactly the man I think I am. That's the problem. She almost laughed. Come here. He came. He sat on the edge of the bed. She took his hand. Her hand was warmer now, almost normal, the IV doing its slow magic, and she held it for a while without talking, and he let her. Ethan. Yeah. When this is over, when the trials start and the names come out, and the news cycle eats everything for 6 weeks and then spits it back out, can I come see you and Maya? He looked at her. Claire. I'm not asking for anything. I'm asking if I can come see you. Yes. Yeah. Yes, come anytime. You want Thanksgiving, you come for Thanksgiving. You want a quiet Tuesday, you come for a quiet Tuesday. My grandfather's cabin has 4 walls and a wood stove, and a kid who already thinks you're the bravest person she's ever seen. You come. Okay. Okay. She closed her eyes. She did not let go of his hand. Thank you for digging me out, Ethan. Thank my dog. I will. I have a package of very expensive steak with Atlas's name on it as soon as I can walk to a butcher. He'll accept. Holloway knocked on the doorframe. Ethan stood. Claire opened her eyes. Ma'am, Mr. Steele, the press has the story. Somebody leaked the Torch Lake arrest. We're about to have a very loud afternoon. Claire sighed. Of course they did. I can have a detail keep your name out of it for 24 hours. After that, you're in the wind. Agent Morgan, you want to be the face of this, or do you want to be a ghost? Ghost. Done. Mr. Steele. Ghost. Done. Holloway. Yes. My daughter. She goes in my truck with my dog out the back to a friend's place in Gaylord. That is not on any list anywhere. Laird drives us. We go home when you tell me it's safe to go home. Agreed. Thank you. Mr. Steele, thank you. They drove out of the Kalkaska Clinic at 20 minutes past 3 in the afternoon in a borrowed gray Tahoe with Trooper Laird at the wheel. Maya buckled in the back with Atlas across her lap and Ethan in the passenger seat with the AR broken down into a soft case at his feet and the brown scarf that had been Sarah's now wrapped around Maya's shoulders for the cold. The storm had stopped while he was inside. The sky was the pale silver blue it got right after a bad lake effect event, the kind of Michigan afternoon where the whole landscape looked like it had been rinsed. At the end of the clinic driveway, a satellite truck from a Grand Rapids news station had already set up. A woman in a red coat was standing in front of a camera saying words Ethan could not hear. He pulled his cap down over his eyes. Laird hit the wipers and eased past her without slowing down. Dad. Yeah, honey. Is Claire coming with us? Not today. She has to stay at the doctor a while. Will she come later? She said she would. Good. Maya looked out the window for a long time. The trees slid past her in a long white march. Dad? Yeah. I don't want to go to school tomorrow. Ethan almost laughed. Honey, tomorrow's Wednesday. School's definitely open. I know. I still don't want to. Okay, we'll skip tomorrow. How about that? Just tomorrow. Just tomorrow. Okay. She leaned her head against Atlas's shoulder. She closed her eyes. Ethan watched her in the side mirror until her breathing went long and even, and then he watched the road. Laird glanced over. Steele. Yeah. You all right? Ask me in 6 months. Fair enough? They drove. And they stayed 2 nights with Laird's cousin in Gaylord, a retired pipe fitter named Walt, who did not ask questions, and who had a guest room with bunk beds that Maya declared the best beds she had ever slept in. They went home on the 3rd morning after Holloway called Ethan personally at 6 a.m. and told him the last of the vulture men had been accounted for, 1 dead of his wounds, in an unregistered clinic outside Cadillac, 3 in federal custody, the rest in the wind, but no longer Ethan's problem. The cabin was still standing. The bodies had been removed. The blood had been covered by fresh snow. The siding where Briggs's rifle had chewed it up was going to need patching, but that was a March job, not a January one. While the FBI had installed a single motion-activated camera at the head of his driveway and offered to install 6 more. He took the 1 and declined the 6. He had Atlas. He had the Remington and the SIG and the AR. He had his eyes. He did not need the federal government in his trees. The trials, when they came, were everything Claire had promised. The congressman from Indiana resigned on a Thursday in March and was indicted the following Monday. The federal judge on the 6th Circuit tried to flee to Belize and was arrested at a private airstrip in Kentucky with 2 suitcases of cash. The former White House communications director turned state's evidence and gave the task force 8 more names, 3 of which were people Ethan had in fact heard of. The sitting United States senator held a press conference at which he denied everything, and then held another press conference 6 weeks later, at which he resigned and was in federal custody by the end of the month. Sheriff Earl Boyd pled out for 22 years. Maria Cuevas, the Traverse City SAC, pled out for 30. Tim Davis recovered. Slowly. He spent 11 days in a hospital and 3 months on medical leave, and when he came back, he walked with a limp. He would never entirely lose, and he never said a word in public about what had been done to him in that basement. His wife Deborah flew up to Michigan in April and drove to Ethan's cabin unannounced and sat at his kitchen table for 2 hours, drinking black coffee and not saying very much, and when she left, she hugged him at the door and said, "Thank you for my husband," and drove away. Ethan Steele did not attend any of the trials. He was not called to testify. Holloway had made a point when he wrote up the case of describing the events of that Tuesday morning in January as an armed engagement initiated by a private security force against a federal agent with civilian bystanders present. And the civilian bystander in question was identified by his first initial and his last name only. And the local paper ran 1 small item about a retired serviceman in Leelanau County who had provided assistance to federal authorities, and that was the extent of it, which was exactly how Ethan wanted it. Claire Morgan came back to Michigan in May. She drove up on a Friday afternoon in a silver rental sedan with a duffel bag in the trunk and a box of books on the back seat, and she pulled into Ethan's driveway just as he was splitting the season's last cord of firewood. She got out of the car. She was wearing jeans and a cream-colored sweater, and she had her hair down. And she looked. Ethan thought like a woman who had spent 3 months sleeping, which she had. She walked across the yard to him. Atlas met her halfway, and she crouched down and put her forehead against the dog's forehead and said something very quiet that Ethan could not hear. Then she stood up and she walked the rest of the way. Hi. Hi. Still a widower. Still a widower. Still retired. Still retired. Any trouble with the federal government since February? Not a peep. Good. She looked at the cabin, at the woodpile, at the shed which had a brand new roof, at the meadow where the snow had gone to mud and the mud was going to grass. Where's Maya? Inside, doing her homework, or pretending to do her homework. Hard to say. She's got a reading list from her mother's old teacher and a diary her therapist gave her in March, and between the two, I can't always tell what she's working on. She has a therapist. She has a very good therapist in Petoskey. Once a week. She talks about her mom. She talks about that Tuesday. She's going to be all right, Claire. She's strong. Her dad's strong. Her mom was stronger. Claire smiled. I want to meet her properly. The last time she saw me, I was mostly dead on her living room floor. She wants to meet you. She's been asking. He walked her up to the porch. He opened the door. He called his daughter's name. Maya came out of the kitchen in socks and a flannel shirt 3 sizes too big, and her black hair in 2 braids. She had learned to braid her own hair in April. Ethan had cried the first time he saw her do it, and she stopped in the middle of the living room and looked at Claire Morgan alive and upright and smiling for the first time. "You're Claire." "I'm Claire." "You're taller than I thought." "I had a lot of blankets on me last time." "Yeah." Maya considered her carefully. "Are you going to live here now?" Claire blinked. She looked at Ethan. Ethan's ears went a very slight pink, which was fortunate because he had thought at 41 he was done with his ears doing that. "No, honey," he said. "Miss Claire has a job in Detroit. She just came to visit." "For how long?" "The weekend," Claire said, "if that's okay with you." Maya thought about it. She thought about it the way she thought about everything, which was thoroughly. "It's okay with me," she said, "but you have to meet Atlas properly." "I've met Atlas." "Properly, with a treat. Come on." She took Claire by the hand and she towed her through the living room into the kitchen. Atlas, sensing treat protocol, followed them. Ethan stood in the doorway and watched the 3 of them for a long moment. His daughter and his dog, and this woman. His dog had pulled out of the snow 4 months ago, and he thought for the first time in 2 long years that his house had the right number of people in it. He did not say that out loud. Men like Ethan Steele did not say things like that out loud. He just closed the door behind him and went to put the coffee on. They ate dinner at the kitchen table. Claire told Maya the kind of carefully edited bureau stories that a 7-year-old could love, chases that ended with nobody hurt, a guy who'd tried to smuggle tropical fish, a stakeout, where a raccoon had stolen her lunch, and Maya laughed until she was short of breath, and Ethan sat across the table with his coffee, and he watched his daughter laugh, and he did not try to stop the small tightness in his throat. After Maya was in bed, Claire and Ethan sat on the porch with blankets and with 2 mugs of something that was not coffee. The stars were out. The last patch of old snow in the shadow of the woodshed was catching the moon. "Ethan." "Yeah." "I got offered the SAC job in Detroit last week." "Did you take it?" "I took it." "Good. You earned it." "It means I'm in Michigan for at least 3 years." "Good. It means I can drive up on weekends sometimes." "Good. Is that all you're going to say?" He looked over at her. The porch light caught her face at the angle Sarah's used to catch in the kitchen late at night when the 2 of them would sit there after Maya had gone to sleep and just be quiet together. He had not had that particular kind of quiet in 2 years. He had stopped expecting to have it again. "Claire." "Yeah." "I'm not ready for a lot of things. I want to be honest with you about that." "I know, but I could be ready for you to drive up sometimes." "Okay. That's all I've got right now. That's enough." They sat a while. Atlas pushed the door open from inside and came out and lay down between their chairs and put his big square head on Ethan's boot. Somewhere out beyond the meadow in the black tree line, an owl called once and then stopped. "Ethan." "Yeah." "Thank you for your dog." He almost laughed. He did laugh a little. "He's a hell of a dog. He's the best dog I have ever met. Don't let Maya hear you. She thinks he belongs to her." "He does belong to her." "Yeah," Ethan said. "Yeah, he does." They sat there a long time. The stars did what stars do. The coffee went cold in his mug, and he did not bother to heat it. At some point, Claire reached over and put her hand on the back of his, and he turned his palm up and laced his fingers through hers, and neither one of them said anything about it, because there was nothing to say about it that would not have been smaller than what it already was. A long time ago, on a Tuesday morning in January, a dog had barked at a door. A man in his bathrobe and boots had followed the dog out into the snow. He had found a woman's hand sticking up out of a drift blue at the nails, and wearing the ghost of a wedding band tan line from a marriage that had ended years before. He had dug her out. He had carried her inside. He had not known, kneeling there beside her in front of his wood stove, with his 7-year-old daughter, watching from the pantry doorway, that the day he was about to have would put him back inside the body he had spent 2 years trying to leave. He had not known that it would end with 2 dead private contractors in his snow, 8 more in federal custody, a United States senator in handcuffs, a trafficking ring 17 years in the making, broken open like a bad egg, and a woman with pale gray eyes sitting on his porch in May holding his hand.
Baú.
He had known only that the dog was worried, and that a hand in the snow was a hand in the snow, and that a man did what a man did. Ethan Steele had spent 12 years overseas being asked by his country to be brave. He had done it well. He had done it long. But the bravest thing he had ever done in all the years and all the countries and all the long dark rooms with strangers on the other side of a door was the thing he had done that Tuesday morning before breakfast in his own backyard in Michigan with his daughter watching. He had pulled a stranger out of the snow. He had chosen again to be useful. He had chosen again to be the kind of man a 7-year-old could be proud of. And when the smoke cleared and the trials ended, and the news cycle moved on to the next unbelievable thing, the only people who remembered, really remembered, were the ones who had been there: a girl, a father, a dog, a woman, and the long, quiet country between a cabin in the pines and the rest of a life. That was the whole story. That was all of it. And it was enough.